What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So it turns out Activision, they're pretty good at making their fans angry, specifically around the Call of Duty Black Ops 4 game. They did an update that seemed to get everyone really mad. They kind of had a bit of an explanation. They changed up the update, it seemed, the language of it anyway, on their site a little bit to try to calm everyone down, but it was seen as a pay-to-win tactic. We're going to talk a bit about that and what's happening here, and once again, highlight the whole live services thing kind of coming back to it every single time, it seems, with some of these games. And then we also saw a really cool product announced that we're going to talk a bit about here that will finally enable your N64 to plug into your HDMI-enabled TV without any crazy boxes or converters or anything running all over the place, or doing what I did, which was open the thing up and solder it straight to the chips. As always, guys, enjoy these videos. Make sure you do hit the like button. It does help out. And get subscribed with the little notification bell thing on so you actually know about the videos. That way you can keep up to date on all the gaming news that takes place throughout the week, as do this every single weekday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time. And we're going to start today with Cyberpunk 2077. It's a game I'm looking forward to. Not out till April, although for a lot of people that might be sooner than they thought. Either way, it feels like it's forever away, but we got some more information on it, specifically from the store pages for the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4. We did get a file size for the PlayStation 4. Now, sometimes when they tell you about a file size requirement for the PS4, they have to tell you about a very large file size because it has to unpack, so it could be a little smaller, but they are quoting 80 gigabytes, and then on the Xbox side, it does say 4K support for the Xbox One X. So it looks like, at least for the Xbox One X, they'll be targeting 4K somewhat. You know, you get checkerboard, upscaling, and all kinds of crazy stuff, but that's actually very encouraging for anyone who wants to get it on the consoles, although I'm pretty sure PC gamers are really looking at this game to max it out and push frame rate, because most likely it's not going to be a high frame rate on consoles, especially if they're looking at 4K. We also got to look at PlayStation Plus games for July, and I have to admit, it's definitely the summer. Games in the summer are generally slower, although the Switch seems to have piled up a lot of games starting, well, Friday with Super Mario Maker 2, but the PlayStation Plus for next month, not amazing. It's Pro Evolution Soccer, or PES 2019, as you're seeing just a little bit of it from the trailer they put out on their blog page at PlayStation. And then there's Horizon Chase Turbo, which is actually a pretty fun game. I actually like this game. It basically tries to be a bit of a callback to the old racers of like the 90s. That one's at least pretty cool. I mean, most people who like soccer games are probably already playing FIFA, but if you want to check out one that a lot of people see as being a bit more technical than FIFA, you can at least load up PES and try it out for yourself, I guess, but definitely a bit of a letdown month, I'd say, but hey, maybe going into August and September, we'll get some really big games. Also, Astral Chain. Looks amazing, right? I've seen plenty of gameplay. It's looking really good from Platinum Games. It sounds like, though, they don't want to tackle DLC with this one. No downloadable content post-release. Instead, they want this thing to be a trilogy. Essentially several games in order, possibly more even, rather than have to release content after the fact. They'd rather just put the game out, and according to them, if it sells well enough, this could be a long-running series. This could be the start to something really big. Now, Nintendo owns the IP, Platinum is working on it, so sales numbers are going to be reflected, I guess, from Nintendo's standpoint. They're going to decide if this is an IP they want to keep going, but, I mean, I have to say, looking at this, I think it's going to sell pretty well, right? And that would be really awesome, especially if the game is really good. Then we could look forward to at least 2 more games from Platinum with this, and it would kind of be like Bayonetta, how we have Bayonetta 3 coming out. We got, 3 games in the series there. Platinum could have another 3-game set with Nintendo with Astral Chain, so here's hoping it's good, but we'll find out at the end of August. Oh, God Eater 3 also got a demo on the eShop if you want to check it out. It's pretty fun. I didn't really get into the God Eater series, but it kind of has like this Monster Hunter kind of feel where you're trying to take down really big enemies and creatures. Just a heads up, it is there if you want to go download it, just to try it out on the Switch, see how it runs, and see if it's a game you're into. If you just go to the eShop, search, and then hit games with demos, and you just kind of sort by date, it should be right at the top. And guys, some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. We're going to start with Activision and Black Ops 4. They've done a lot with this game. right? It's games as a service at its finest. They've added stuff in after the fact, after it was put out to the world. Reviewers said it was a really fun game. It looks good. Everything's pretty good over here. Then all of a sudden we find out about microtransactions, the season, they were talking about a season pass and everything, and it was getting out of control as they added stuff. Well, Blackout mode was kind of left untouched, I would say. Of course, they added like their own little season mode next to it that gives you a bit of a time frame to earn things, and it kind of pushes you towards spending real money because you might run out of time if you don't have enough time to grind out different weapons and everything that they offer and skins and all of that. Well, it looks like they are incorporating that into other modes, essentially. So if you have something really cool in your stash, you can then use it on the battlefield. And originally they were talking about it for Blackout mode. And trust me, when I hear that they are originally thinking about it, they are thinking about it. Okay, that to me that means that they're thinking about it. They got a bit of pushback, and now they're changing things up. But here's actually what they put up. You're seeing a little passage here, and it says, "Next up, Blackjack Stash is a new feature that we're introducing in limited time modes only, not in core competitive solo duos or quads matches. First on PlayStation 4." Oh, lucky to the PlayStation 4 gamers there. You'll be able to unlock one of these rare new stashes per match if you find one, and it will contain black market weapons that you currently have in your collection. Now, originally it was viewed as it's going to be something that pops in Blackout, so if you're running through what's supposed to be a survival battle royale style game, right, where it comes down to skill and luck, a lot of luck sometimes, let's be real, depending on what you find and where you land and where everyone else is. But still, there is a lot of skill involved with some of these Battle Royale games. But let's say you're playing against somebody who has spent quite a bit of money, right, to get these really cool limited time unlocks and weapons and stuff. And you find a stash and you have your choice. They can just pick some of these awesome weapons. That is something that was rubbing the community the wrong way, blew up on their subreddit, and it didn't look great. And now they've seemed to have shifted to this limited time mode, and it's not going to be competitive, which is good. But trust me, we've seen what happens with these live services. They will update at times to try to see what they can get away with, pull back, and then later when people aren't paying attention, they do it again. So keep that in mind with these live services. It's one of the issues that a lot of us realize with these things, and we keep an eye on it, and Activision just keeps proving it with this series. That's why I'm really interested in the campaign that we're going to see for Call of Duty Modern Warfare. But I'm still unsure as to things when it comes to the multiplayer, and at that point, right, how are the live services going to interact with it? Because apparently they're not going to have like map packs all going to be integrated, which that generally means microtransactions in some way and pushing you towards them. This is just another example, as with a long string of examples, as to how live services can incorporate things well after release date. Well after reviews come out, by the way, too. Next up, let's talk about this new adapter that Eon is putting out. It's for the Nintendo 64, and it is a plug-and-play HDMI adapter, as in, it's gonna be this little block that you plug into the back of your Nintendo 64. On one end is the plug to go in, and on the other end is a female HDMI port that you can then plug your HDMI cable into, run it to your TV, and bam, you have a fairly good looking image. But it's the N64, you can only do so much, trust me. I have an entire thing wired up to the chip, and it still looks as good as it possibly can, I would say, and it still doesn't look amazing, right? I mean, you can only get so much from that system, but this looks like it's I would say the easiest way, right, to actually get a signal from it through HDMI to your TV rather than running cables everywhere or soldering stuff to the board. So they put out a trailer, they put out tons of information for this thing. We're talking about the price, because the price might be a bit high, I will admit, but it's the only product that I've seen that's this easy to use on the market currently. So if there's no other real products around it, they'll probably price it higher. Yes, I get that. So let's take a look at some of the features that they offered up in a tweet that they put out, and then of course the trailer where they showed several shots of them playing things like Mario 64 on it. And this is the Eon Super 64. It's the first plug and play HDMI adapter for the N64, and that will be S-Video scaled to 480p with lagless input, has that custom design where the light will actually light up when you turn on the 64 and it's activated, so that's pretty cool. Of course, it uses standard HDMI output, so it won't use a smaller HDMI port that I have to use for mine currently, where you have kind of like the mini HDMI out, then you have to get an adapter to full size, and then they have something called slick mode that we're gonna come back to, and they say no mods or external power required, which is good. It's all just literally one piece that has to have basically a pass through for your HDMI, which is really cool. Slick mode is something that they really wanted to point out. The idea of slick mode is to smooth out any edges that are very apparent on screen. Now, the N64 already kind of has anti-aliasing sort of built into it. It's something a lot of people don't like because it works to muddy the picture even further. So any way you can kind of eliminate that or work around it is a good thing, and that's kind of what it sounds like they're trying to work against here to a degree, to kind of essentially control it, because they're pulling it out of the standard port on the back, and they're working with S-Video, which S-Video can still actually look pretty good on certain tube TVs, for example, like some of the nicer ones from back in the day, like some of the Sonys you can get. There were some good ones that handled S-Video and did their best, once again, with the Nintendo 64. I'm mostly curious how this thing is actually going to handle that signal, and if it really can clean it up with slick mode, and who knows, maybe they have some new setup inside that thing to try to rework the picture as best as possible. I said it's not gonna be cheap, and that's because it's $150 from what I'm seeing, and they're looking to ship at the end of July. Now, they did this with their GameCube adapter. I really like that thing. The GameCube adapter is awesome. It makes hooking it up super easy. It looks great, and because we're, of course, either between that or the component cables that are also $150 or more, maybe they're looking at that being the reason for this as well, because they spent the time to engineer it, put it together, and put it out on the market. And of course, they're the only ones. So you'd have to really sit down and look at this, considering that Ultra HDMI that I picked up was $150 for the parts, but I still had to install it. If you want to get one done yourself, it can be upwards $400 I've seen. So thinking about it that way, if the results are good enough, I don't think it's gonna look as good as my Ultra HDMI. I just don't think it's possible because I'm going straight from the chip. But if it can look good enough, it's, I think, an obvious choice for someone who wants to stream stuff or get B-roll footage from it at least, or if you want an easy way to set it up, it's another good thing to have. But I will be taking a look at it, whether it's release day or end up with a review unit, and I would like to pair it against the Ultra HDMI just to see if we can get an image that we can deem as good enough for the price. Next up, we did have Mario Maker 2 reviews. The embargo lifted, and on Metacritic, currently it's at an 89, which puts it 1 point above the one on the Wii U, so just the first Mario Maker, and like 15 to 16 points above the 3DS version. So far, so good. And I was reading through it because I would say I don't really care as much about creating the levels, me personally. I like to just play Mario, and it's pretty much an unlimited amount of Mario, right? You go online, people make all these cool levels, and then you get to just play them, and that's amazing to me. Maybe I will just check out some of the level building stuff, but I just like to play them. But it does sound like, according to some of the reviews, the story mode is great. They did say some of the tools are pretty good, but having to actually build on like one screen was harder, or less intuitive, I should say, than the Wii U, which I think is expected, considering you had the main screen, your TV, and then you had a touch screen right below that you had in front of you. So you had two screens. I think that's obviously going to make it easier to build. I don't think anyone's saying, well, no, one screen is better. Most people are going to think two screens are better. But after reading the reviews, I am very excited. It's out tomorrow. Exciting stuff. I'm going to go pick it up right away and go online and see who made the impossible level already. Who's that person that already made a level that has like a 0.5% clear rate or something crazy. Also, I want to look at those auto levels. Those are fun too. But I'm excited. It's gonna be fun, and it's unlimited Mario for $60, so I can't really complain. Should be a good time. And our last bit of news, let's talk about PUBG, I guess. PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. If you've probably played that, a lot of people have played it, or at least seen people play it on Twitch or other places. It was super popular. It's still popular now, but it was like massively popular, right? Like a year or two ago, and is a battle royale style game. It's the one that really, I guess, set off the current trend of battle royale games. Fortnite jumped on it, of course, obviously Call of Duty, and it looks like there is going to be a new game in the universe whatever that means. See, here's the thing. They're saying that this is going to be a new game that is now in development in the PUBG universe. I didn't know there was much of a lore to the game. I'm a little confused right now. But they did say it looks like it's going to be a narrative story-driven game. So again, I don't see why they can't do it, but there's not much lore there as it is, so I guess they can at least be creative with it. Now, this was announced on YouTube with a video and then a press release that followed, and they wanted to introduce Striking Distance. So they have a new studio that is being run currently and led by Glenn Schofield, who you may know from, well, at least I know from the Dead Space, right? Made Dead Space, which is really cool. So I'm trying to figure out what they're gonna create here. It sounds like it is like early development. Like this could be a couple years that we see it. I think it's a next generation game at this point, just because if they're starting to work on it at this time, it's probably not gonna be done for, I would say, 2 to 3 years, depending on how big the scope of this game is. But to have someone like Glenn heading the whole project, creator of Dead Space, and I guess working within an already well-known name IP of PUBG, you put that on there, you put something under it that's, I don't know, what do you call it? It's anyone could take a guess at that, but you know, like you have PUBG and then you have the title of the game, and it's like a narrative experience. So it's something to keep an eye on. We probably won't see anything in terms of gameplay or even an actual trailer from it, even a cinematic one, for quite some time. But interesting that they are going to not really move on, because it won't be a battle royale game, it sounds like, but kind of extend the universe, essentially. Maybe they could build it out. Maybe they can explain some things about the one we're playing, although I think they got some of those assets from another place, so they might have to double check about how those assets play into that narrative. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This one's from George Washington saying, if they remake Final Fantasy VI, they better keep it turn-based with ATB. The Final Fantasy VII remake style really wouldn't fit that game. Also, Final Fantasy VI in the Octopath engine would be gorgeous. So here's the thing about this. It's going to depend on which way they would want to go with it. So if they are going to do something like Final Fantasy VII Remake, they are changing something, whether it's the battle system or maybe the flow of the game. I think they'll go after the battle system right away because they want it to be, according to them, more modern. Now, if they take it and make it with less of a budget and do something like an Octopath style, then I think you'll see it stick with its traditional roots and it'll just be straight turn-based. Again, similar to Octopath, or maybe they want to do an active time battle and everything, but I do think if they put that kind of money in and it's like a Final Fantasy VII Remake, they are not going to leave it turn-based, unfortunately, because to them, I think they're seeing that as a failing formula or an archaic formula. They want it to seem new and fresh, especially if they're going to change everything up. They've talked about this in interviews before, so it would depend on which way they go with it, and then that might shape which way you want them to go with it. Do you want them to be traditional but not go crazy and do what they're doing with Final Fantasy VII Remake and have an Octopath Traveler style? Or do you want them to change pretty much everything up and blow it up and do something like Final Fantasy VII Remake with Final Fantasy VI? Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, the like button really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about. There's the Eon HDMI adapter. Are you interested? If it's good, even though it is $150, but HDMI from your already owned N64 with your library of games. Is that worth it to you so you can hook it up? That's something that a lot of people are gonna have to ask themselves when this thing releases. Also, what about blackout mode with Activision? I'm curious about that one. And then Mario Maker 2 tomorrow. Who's getting it? Let me know, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.